Michael believed he was the master of the world. Endless money, unquestionable influence, and respect bought. That night, he crossed the doors of the most exclusive gala in New York, showcasing his mistress, wishing the entire high society would witness his new conquest. But it took only a few seconds for his house of cards to collapse. On the other side of the grand ballroom, pregnant and absolutely radiant, was Sarah, his wife. And she was not alone. Beside her stood another man. In that fleeting moment, the magnate, who took pleasure in belittling others, discovered the crushing weight of public humiliation. This is the story of a man who lost everything that mattered the exact second he thought he had conquered it all. The grand gala at the Plaza Hotel was at its peak, vibrating with the energy of New York's elite. The golden light from the imposing chandeliers reflected off Italian-cut suits and haute couture dresses parading across the marble floor. Michael entered through the main door, walking with the arrogance of someone who owned the city, with Jessica intertwined in his arm. She looked stunning, dressed in a vibrant red that cost the price of a brand new car. He was handing out wide smiles, greeting guests, shaking hands vigorously. His intention was clear. He wanted to be seen, noticed, and envied. He grabbed 2 glasses of champagne from a passing tray, raised one of them, and proposed a toast, too loud, clashing with the classical music filling the room. He felt invincible at the top of the food chain. Then his eyes swept the ballroom with arrogance and suddenly froze. Across the room, near the reserved tables at the back, was Sarah. 7 months pregnant, wearing a minimalist blue dress, she radiated a serene elegance that Jessica's forced sparkle could never reach. And beside her, a man held her hand with a protective delicacy. Michael felt the oxygen disappear from his lungs. The glass slipped from his sweaty fingers. The crystal shattered against the floor with a sharp clatter. The entire ballroom plunged into an awkward silence, and the millionaire, who had never lost a bet in his life, felt the ground disappear beneath him. 3 months before that fateful night, Michael was a completely different person, or at least that was what the image in the mirror told him. At 42, he ran one of the largest real estate firms on Wall Street. Born with a silver spoon in his mouth in the Upper East Side, an only child, excessively spoiled by his mother and solemnly ignored by his father. The word no was non-existent in his vocabulary. He never had to fight for anything. If he wanted something, he bought it. If he grew tired of something, he discarded it without looking back. Sarah had entered his life 8 years earlier. The marriage was quick. Honeymoon in Paris, a cinematic apartment on the Upper East Side. The first 2 years were a whirlwind of passion. Then the New York routine set in. She managed the home, organized social dinners, talked about heirs. He dodged the conversation. There was always a justification on the tip of his tongue, a new venture, a business trip to New York, an important merger. Sarah waited. Her patience seemed infinite. Michael began to arrive later and later. Meetings that stretched into the early morning, endless happy hours, weekends locked in the office, lies that she accepted because the truth hurt too much. Then, 6 months ago, he met Jessica at a corporate event. She was 28, with a hunger for power in her eyes and a smile that promised all the adventure that Sarah's stability no longer offered. Adrenaline, the forbidden freedom. The first meeting took place in a discreet boutique hotel in Soho. Michael felt alive in a way he hadn't experienced in decades. Jessica didn't demand presents, didn't talk about tomorrow. She wanted to devour the now. He dove in head first. Sarah began to notice the signs. First, it was the sweet perfume lingering on his collar. Michael denied it with such indignation that she ended up feeling guilty for her own suspicion. Then came the notifications on his phone. She saw a woman's name light up on the locked screen. She confronted him. Michael exploded, skillfully turning the tables, shouting that she was suffocating him, that she didn't respect his space, that he was becoming neurotic. Sarah cried, begged for forgiveness, and stayed. 2 weeks later, the pharmacy test confirmed it. Pregnant. When she told him with tear-filled eyes of hope, Michael merely looked away and said coldly, "We'll talk about this another time." There was no celebration, no embrace. Sarah left the room in absolute silence, and it was at that moment that the structure began to crumble. Michael grew up witnessing his father's silent humiliation. His mother had extramarital affairs. The entire society knew, and his father feigned blindness. He swallowed his pride, accepted the situation, and smiled at cocktail parties as if life were perfect. Michael vowed to himself that he would never play that role. He would never be weak, never give his heart to anyone. He built an existence where control was his. Money bought loyalty, power kept vulnerability at bay. Sarah, in the beginning, represented the safe harbor. Coming from a traditional family, she had principles. She wasn't with him for the credit card. Michael married, thinking that was enough, but over time that security began to feel like a heavy anchor. Conversations about growing old together, everything began to cause him claustrophobia. Jessica was the antidote. No commitment, no demands, no long-term plans, pure dopamine. He started taking her to remote restaurants in the Catskills, escapes to Fire Island, luxury motels. He felt powerful, maintaining 2 parallel lives. He believed he had total dominion, that he could have his cake and eat it too. Sarah was the trophy wife for charity galas. Jessica was the perfect escape when he needed, to feel young, desired, and unbound. Michael believed with all his arrogance that he would balance these plates forever. Then Sarah discovered the truth, and it was not like the other times. 2 months pregnant, she requested one last conversation. They sat in the living room, separated by an abyss of silence. Sarah squeezed her own hands tightly. Michael took a deep breath, trying to maintain his composure. "I need to know if there's still love on your side, if you still want to build this family with me." He looked at Sarah and felt an emptiness, just an immense fatigue. "I don't know if I'm ready for fatherhood," he shot back. "I don't know if I love you like I did at the beginning." The words came out cold, bureaucratic. Sarah didn't shed a tear this time. She just took a deep breath, grabbed her purse, and walked out the door. Michael remained motionless, certain that she would return. She always did. 2 days passed, 3, an entire week. Silence. Then came the stamped envelope, the divorce papers, and along with it, a handwritten letter. "I deserve someone who chooses me every day, and our child deserves that too." Michael crumpled the paper in anger and threw it in the trash. He called her, voicemail, sent text messages that were read and ignored. He punched the glass table, screamed alone in the echoing apartment. And yet that night, lying on the king-sized bed that felt too big, he still nurtured the illusion that he could fix the damage. Michael dove into his relationship with Jessica. Weekend trips to the Riviera, dinners where the bill exceeded the minimum wage. VIP lounges where the champagne never stopped coming. He posted strategically discreet photos on social media. Her arm, a toast to the sunset with a view from his presidential suite. He wanted to reach Sarah. He wanted her to feel jealous, to come back begging, to realize the mistake she made. But Sarah had fortified her life. Instagram, WhatsApp, phone blocked. He had become a ghost to her. Michael hired a private investigator. He discovered that she was hiding out in Aspen at a vacation home belonging to a cousin. He jotted down the address on a piece of paper and carried it in his suit pocket for 3 weeks before taking action. Then, on a cold, rainy Friday after downing half a bottle of whiskey alone, he got into his armored car and hit the road. 2 hours winding up the mountain, thick fog, hands trembling on the leather steering wheel. He arrived just before midnight. The house was cozy, chalet-style, yellow light in the window. Michael got out, knocked on the solid wood door. A woman answered, the cousin, who recognized him immediately. She frowned in disdain. Sarah appeared behind her, 5 months pregnant, her belly already evident under her woolen clothes. She wore comfortable pajamas, her hair in a loose bun, her face clean, and yet she was stunning. "Michael," she said, just his name, "we need to talk. We have nothing more to say. Let me in, please." "No, Sarah, I was wrong. I know I was wrong, and I made a choice." "Michael, now learn to live with your choice." And he tried to take a step forward. The cousin blocked his way. Sarah touched her cousin's shoulder, calming her. "It's okay." She looked Michael in the eyes. "You're drunk. Go to sleep and don't come back here." She gently but firmly closed the door. Michael stood paralyzed in the cold, drizzling rain, soaking his imported suit. He punched the hood of the car, once, twice, 3 times. He shouted her name into the fog. No one answered. He got back in the car, rested his forehead on the steering wheel, and broke down. He cried convulsively, as he hadn't since childhood. At the office, the empire began to crumble. The partners whispered in the hallways about the tumultuous divorce. One of them made an unfortunate joke during a board meeting. Michael abruptly stood up, knocked over his chair, and stormed out, slamming the glass door behind him. He locked himself in his office, drinking straight. From the bottle he kept hidden in the desk drawer. Jessica called 3 times. He rejected the calls. When he finally answered, she was hysterical. "You don't pay attention to me anymore. You're always spaced out. I want to go to Paris in the spring. When are we booking the tickets?" Michael leaned back in his chair, staring at the acoustic ceiling. Jessica said slowly, "Why are you with me?" She paused for a few moments, then replied, "Because you make me feel powerful, special." He laughed, a dry laugh devoid of joy. "And what do you feel for me, for who I am?" Another long silence. Michael hung up, looked at the phone, and logged into Sarah's profile using a fake account. She didn't post much, but that day there was a new photo. Sarah sitting on a park bench, protective hand on her belly, smiling at the lens. The caption was short, "New Beginnings." Michael zoomed in on the image, mesmerized by that smile for minutes, hours, until the battery died. He couldn't close the app, couldn't stop looking. He felt a void in his chest that no cover, no sports car, and no trip could fill. Jessica sent a text message. "I'm leaving if you don't change this attitude." He didn't even bother to reply. That night, sitting on the Italian leather sofa, isolated in the silence of the apartment in the gardens, Michael was certain that no one would come back. Have you ever made a decision that seemed logical at the time, but later realized you had imploded what you loved most? Have you ever felt that hole in your chest that nothing can fill? Comment with a yes below if you understand this pain. I read all the comments and make it a point to respond to each one of you who opens your heart to me. 2 months dragged on like a foggy day in New York. Michael lived on autopilot. He woke up, went to Wall Street, pretended to be productive, returned home, drank, and passed out. Jessica still frequented the apartment, but she was a ghostly presence. He barely registered what she said. Then came the luxurious invitation, the charity gala at the Plaza Hotel, the social event of the year in New York. He and Sarah were confirmed attendees every year. Michael held the heavy invitation, feeling his heart tighten. Jessica saw the golden envelope and her eyes sparkled. "Are we going?" she asked excitedly. Michael felt her by inertia. Maybe going out is the solution. Maybe it would be good to prove to society. Michael was unshakable. Perhaps Sarah would see the photos in the social columns and feel something, any trace of feeling. The night before the ball, Michael was organizing his closet when he found a forgotten shoebox at the back of a high shelf. He opened the lid. Inside were developed photos from their honeymoon, New York, Sarah laughing under the Empire State Building. The two embraced by the Hudson River, her wearing the ring he designed. Michael traced her face in the photo with his finger. Beneath the photos were notes, sticky notes that Sarah used to put in his planner when he traveled for work. I love you today and always. You are my home. Thank you for choosing me. At the bottom of the box, wrapped in tissue paper, was the positive pregnancy test. She had kept it like a treasure. Michael sat on the carpeted floor with the box in his lap, and for the first time in months, the tears were real, not from wounded anger, not from frustration, but from pure pain and regret. He remembered the marriage proposal, Sarah crying, her trembling hands saying yes. He recalled the promises he made at the altar, to protect her, to be a partner, to build a legacy together. He remembered how she always looked at him as if he were a hero, much more than he really was. And the realization hit him. Sarah never asked for jewelry, never demanded the latest car or designer handbags. She just wanted him to stay, to be present. Michael picked up his phone, called. Her voicemail, her recorded voice from months ago, felt like a dagger. Hi, leave your message. He took a deep breath, trembling. Sarah, I destroyed everything. I know, but I want to try to fix it, please. He hung up. He waited. The phone remained silent. The next day, he went to the ball. Jessica talked incessantly in the passenger seat. Michael looked at the urban landscape through the window, feeling hollow. He didn't know if it would work out, but for the first time in a long time, he wanted to try. Michael entered the ballroom of the Plaza Hotel with Jessica hanging on his arm. She drew attention, the red dress screaming for attention, but he was in another dimension. The orchestra, the chatter, the fake smiles, everything felt like a silent movie. Jessica pinched his arm. Are you okay? Michael forced a display of a smile. I'm great. They moved through the ballroom. Acquaintances approached, greeting, analyzing Jessica with curious judgment. The new girlfriend of Michael, someone whispered audibly. He heard it, felt his stomach churn. An old business partner came to shake his hand. And how is Sarah doing? Michael swallowed hard, following her life. The man nodded awkwardly and made an excuse to leave. Jessica pulled him toward the pub. Shall we get a drink? Michael ordered a double whiskey, then another. Jessica complained, You're not even here for me. Look at me. He met her gaze. Sorry, I'm exhausted. She rolled her eyes. You've been tired lately. We came here to have fun, Michael. He nodded, but his soul wasn't there. No, not really. Jessica dragged him to the dance floor. He followed her robotically, hands on her waist, body swaying to the rhythm, but his mind wandered far away. Jessica whispered something seductive in his ear. He didn't process it, smiled automatically. Then there was a strange movement on the other side of the ballroom. People parted. Michael looked instinctively, and she appeared. Sarah, 7 months pregnant. Her round belly marked in a blue dress, her hair loose falling over her bare shoulders. She walked slowly, one hand supporting her back, and beside her was a man, a white shirt, impeccable, no tie, casual, yet elegant. He held her hand with reverence, as if Sarah were made of porcelain. Sarah laughed at something he said, a light, genuine laugh, the kind of laugh Michael hadn't heard in months, not in years. Michael abruptly stopped dancing. Jessica noticed, followed his gaze. Who is that? He couldn't form a sentence, just stood there watching Sarah cross the ballroom as if she were another woman, confident, light, free. Sarah felt the weight of his gaze, turned her face. Their eyes met in the crowd. She didn't look away, nor flinch. She merely tilted her head slightly, a distant, formal greeting, as if he were an old acquaintance, nothing more. The man beside her, David, sensed the tension in the air, whispered something to her. Sarah smiled and shook her head. It's okay, she seemed to say. They walked toward the outdoor terrace. Michael released Jessica without explanation. She called his name. He ignored her. He crossed the dance floor, bumping into couples, his eyes fixed on Sarah. He reached her near the outdoor terrace. "Sarah." She turned slowly. "Michael." Her voice was polite but cold. "Are you okay?" "I'm great. Who is he?" She looked at Michael as if he were a stranger asking for information. "That doesn't concern you anymore. You're carrying my child, our child." She corrected him with emphasis. "And he will have a mother who chooses him every day. That was the lesson you taught me, Michael, that I deserve someone like that." Michael stepped forward desperately. "Sarah, I was wrong. I know, but nothing. You didn't make a mistake by accident. You made choices repeatedly, and now I have chosen too. Do you love him?" The silence was deafening. Sarah took a deep breath of the night air. "I'm learning to love someone who truly values me, and it's been easier than I imagined." The words cut deeper than any blade. Michael felt his knees weaken. Sarah placed her hand on her belly in a protective gesture. "I need to go. Take care of who you brought today." She turned and walked back into the illuminated ballroom. Michael stood there alone on the dark terrace, watching her disappear among the guests, and for the first time he understood the reality. He had lost her for good. Michael returned to the ballroom looking like a sleepwalker. The lights felt blinding, the music distorted. He searched for Jessica with his eyes. She was at the bar, flirting. Michael stood there alone in the most luxurious ballroom in the city. For the first time in months, he had just seen Jessica leave with another guest, laughing loudly. When she spotted him, she turned her face away in disdain. He approached her. "Jessica, let's go." She looked at him with disgust. "We're not going anywhere. You left me hanging all night." "I'm leaving, yes, but with him." She pointed to the guy beside her. Michael didn't even blink. He just nodded. Jessica grabbed her clutch and walked away without looking back. Then he spotted Sarah again. She was dancing to a slow song, her body leaning against David, his hand on her waist, the other carefully holding her hand. Sarah had her eyes closed, her head on his shoulder, her free hand resting on her belly, and she seemed at peace. Michael left the ballroom, walked to the parking lot, sat in the driver's seat of his car, and stayed there in the dark for what felt like an eternity. He took out his phone and searched his contacts. Dr. Smith, the therapist Sarah had begged him to see 2 years ago, was someone Michael had always refused. "Therapy is a crutch for weak people," he used to say. He dialed the number. Voicemail. "Dr. Smith, this is Michael Anderson. I need help. Please call me back." He hung up and waited. 10 minutes later, his phone vibrated. Michael started the following week, with 2 sessions a week. At first, he was resistant, arms crossed, giving one-word answers, but Dr. Smith was experienced. He asked surgical questions, and Michael began to talk about his absent father, witnessing his mother cheat, the fear of being vulnerable, and how he controlled every aspect of his life to avoid feeling anything. The therapist helped him see the obvious. You never cheated on Sarah out of a lack of love. You cheated because you were terrified of loving her too much and losing control. Michael cried in that session. He cried like he had never allowed anyone to see. In the following weeks, he dove into the process. He confronted every scar, every childhood fear, every lie he told himself in the mirror, and he understood. Jessica was never love. She was anesthesia, a way to escape what he truly felt. And what he felt was terror, terror of surrendering, of repeating his father's story, of not being in control. 2 months later, Michael wrote a letter. No emails or texts, just paper and pen. "Sarah, I'm not asking to come back. I don't have that right. But I need you to know that I'm working on myself. I'm addressing my flaws, and I want to be a present father for our son. Even if you don't want me in your life anymore, no strings attached, no games. I just want to be there." He mailed it and waited. 3 weeks later, a terse message arrived. "Can we talk? But the subject is exclusively about Michael Jr." Michael read and reread it, responding, "Thank you." Michael sold the enormous old apartment in the upscale neighborhood. He bought a smaller penthouse in a trendy area, just a few blocks from where Sarah lived now. He enrolled in active fatherhood courses. He learned about bucket baths, proper holds for breastfeeding, and developmental leaps. The other dads in the class looked at him strangely. He was the only man without a partner, but he didn't mind. When Sarah went into labor, she allowed him to wait at the hospital. Michael stayed in the waiting room for 8 agonizing hours, pacing, praying to a God he had forgotten. Then the nurse appeared. "It's a strong boy. She's fine. Do you want to come in?" Michael entered the room. Sarah was exhausted, her hair matted with sweat, but she was smiling. In her arms, a tiny bundle. She looked at Michael. "Do you want to hold your son?" He approached reverently, cradling the baby in his arms, and broke down. Tears soaked the blanket. "Forgive me for not being ready sooner." Sarah, in a weak voice, whispered, "He's going to need you from today on, present, truly." Michael nodded, mesmerized by his son's face. "I promise." And this time he knew it wasn't empty words. It was a promise of life. 8 months later, Michael was sitting on a park bench in the trendy neighborhood with Michael Jr. in his lap. The baby had his eyes but Sarah's bright smile. Michael rocked back and forth, softly humming a lullaby he had learned in class. The autumn sun filtered through the trees. Sarah arrived with 2 cups of coffee, handed one to him, and sat down beside him, keeping a respectful distance. "Thank you," he said. She nodded. "How was the nap?" "Calm. He only woke up once to feed." Sarah smiled. "His sleep is improving." Michael looked at her. "Yes, we're making progress." They sat there in comfortable silence. There were no touches, no rekindled romantic glances, but there was something more solid. Peace. David, the man from the gala, was no longer in the picture. Sarah had explained weeks ago, without going into details. "We tried, but I needed to heal on my own first. It wouldn't be fair to use someone as a crutch." Michael didn't ask questions. He just mentally thanked her for finding that strength. They hadn't rekindled their marriage. Michael accepted that reality, but they built something new, a parenting partnership. They talked about introducing solid foods to Michael Jr., shared sleepless nights, and laughed at the baby's discoveries. Michael visited her apartment twice a week. He brought groceries, handled paperwork, and helped with whatever was needed. No ulterior motives. Sarah took Michael Jr. from his arms. The baby nestled into his mother's scent. Michael watched the scene with admiration. She hummed softly, stroking her son's fine hair. And for the first time, Michael didn't feel the sting of jealousy or possession. He didn't feel the pain of loss. He felt gratitude. He hadn't regained the status of husband, nor had he regained the woman he loved, but he had regained something he thought was lost forever, his own humanity and the chance to be the father Michael Jr. deserved. Sarah looked at him. "You're different, Michael." He smiled shyly. "I'm trying to be." She nodded. "You're succeeding." The sun began to set behind the buildings. Sarah stood up. "I need to go. It's bath time." Michael got up as well. "Tomorrow I'll stop by to spend the afternoon with him. Take some time to rest." Sarah held his arm for a brief second, a quick touch, but filled with sincerity. "Thank you, Michael, for being here, truly." He just felt her presence. Words were unnecessary. She turned her back and walked home with Michael Jr. sleeping on her shoulder. Michael stood there watching her walk away down the sidewalk and felt something that money could never provide. Peace, not from a past he couldn't change, but from a future he could still build. Michael learned in the most brutal way possible that love is not synonymous with possession. It's a daily choice. It's being present. He spent his life running from the ghost of his betrayed father, building walls around his heart, controlling everything to avoid feeling pain. And in trying to protect himself, he became the monster he feared the most, the man who hurts those he loves. He lost Sarah, lost the marriage. He lost the chance to experience the pregnancy, to feel the kicks in the belly, to choose the name together, but he gained something that his fortune could never buy: awareness. Today he understands that pride is not worth more than human connection, that flaunting power does not replace the courage to be vulnerable, that new beginnings do not erase mistakes, but can open new paths. Sarah found strength where there was only rubble. She learned that staying in a failing relationship is not proof of love. Sometimes leaving is the greatest act of self-love there is. When she chose herself and her son, when she slammed that door in Michael's face in the Catskills, she wasn't being cruel, she was being brave, and taught Michael the hardest lesson. Those you love need to feel that love every day, not in expensive gifts, not in empty promises, but in presence, in actions, in deeds that validate the words. Michael Jr. will grow up seeing separated parents who respect each other. He will learn that cycles can end without war, that it's possible to rebuild life after the storm, that humility is the greatest luxury a man can have. And maybe when he's an adult, he will understand that his parents didn't fail due to a lack of love. They failed due to a lack of courage at the time, but they learned. And that, in the end, is the legacy that matters. If this story touched your heart in any way, leave your like down below. It shows me that we are connected, that you felt the message I wanted to convey, and let me know in the comments which city in the US or the world you are watching from right now. I truly read all of them and make it a point to respond kindly to those who take the time to comment. If you believe in the transformative power of these real stories, subscribe to the channel. We are just at the beginning of this journey, and each new subscription is the fuel that gives me the certainty to continue bringing such narratives to you. Your participation makes all the difference, and don't leave just yet. Choose one of the 2 stories I left on the screen for you to watch now. I'll see you in the next video.